I'm sure you've heard of the Family Planning Association. They're related to Planned Parenthood in the US. They're a dangerous organisation in New Zealand who have been poisoning the minds of our children for far too long. They promote abortion, underage sex and promiscuity, going on contraception, suggesting that it can be done confidentially without telling pesky parents, sneaking young girls off for abortions, once again without parental knowledge. And they're now pushing the transgender issue with puberty blockers and chest binders and tucking, etc. But family planning, it sounds so positive, doesn't it? Marriage, family, children, values. No, Family Planning Association is anything but that. But in a recent development just announced last week, they've finally decided to tell a truth. They've removed the name family from their organisation, which is, I think, a great thing because they do nothing to enhance the word. Let's check it out. So let me show you a little evidence of what the Family Planning Association in New Zealand believe. Firstly, they believe that abortion should be available up to birth and that parents should be not notified if their daughter is pregnant and wants an abortion. They made that quite clear in their submission to Parliament back in 2020 when our extreme law was being introduced. Here they say they do not support a statutory test for abortion for a pregnancy over 20 weeks. So in other words, abortion up to full term on demand, no test. And secondly, they also don't know what a woman is. Now, let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. You can see there, they say, recommends making the bill inclusive by removing the definition of woman and using the words people or a person who is pregnant throughout the bill, noting in the explanatory note that the majority of people who have abortions are women. Okay, so let's come back to that. But let's just have a look at this, what they said in a little bit more detail. And this is under concerns about the proposed legislation from their submission. For a woman who is more than 20 weeks pregnant, the bill requires a health practitioner to reasonably believe the abortion is appropriate with regard to the pregnant woman's physical and mental health and well-being. Now, of course, we know that this is just a tick and a nod from two abortion providers with vested interests. But family planning still don't like that. And so they continue treating abortions up to 20 weeks gestation and after 20 weeks gestation differently in the law is not based on health reasons. 20 weeks gestation is arbitrary during a pregnancy, not tied to any medical or physiological point, which would require abortion to be treated differently at this stage. Yeah. They obviously don't understand the biological development of the unborn child, the number of weeks that children are now being born premature and surviving, which, it's incredible by a so-called family planning group. In fact, I checked about the earliest premature birth, and the one I could find was in 2021 when Curtis Means was born at 21 weeks and 1 day.
Curtis Means started his life setting records. He's the smallest surviving baby ever born. He's so small that he's been officially recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records. Born at 21 weeks and 1 day.
I knew it was too early to have him, and I would just, like I said, I was just praying to say, please keep my kids here with me, but it was hard.
Survival at such a young gestational age has never happened before. So before he was born, his chances of survival would have been less than 1%.
Curtis was a twin, and sadly his sister did not survive. But Curtis was a fighter, and the medical team were amazed at his will to live.
He literally was the first of his kind in a sense, and so we were in uncharted waters, uncharted territory. Curtis was different. He was, I know his title said 21 weeks and 1 day, but his physiology acted a little bit more mature, which was to his favor.
Yeah, perhaps family planning should do a little bit more homework and maybe go back to biology classes at school. They suggest that being able to abort Curtis is completely okay, no test required. But I'm sure Curtis would be one person who disagrees. But family planning says it has nothing to do with biology and fetal development. It's just based on the needs of the family, apparently. Here's what they say. Family planning has been clear, along with a number of other health providers and professional bodies that the Law Commission consulted with, that we support Model A, where there are no statutory tests for abortion, so in other words, up to birth, and abortions are provided based on the needs of the person and their families. Clinical standards and informed consent. The Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists writes, quote, no specific clinical circumstance should qualify or not qualify a woman for an abortion. The impact of any particular condition is individual, complex, no list can be complete, and becomes highly restrictive in the most complex of circumstances. So not only do they not understand fetal development, but they also can't define a woman, and that only women can get pregnant. Here they say the bill defines woman as a person of any age who is capable of becoming pregnant. This definition is problematic, given that some people who are capable of becoming pregnant do not identify as a woman. The definition, therefore, excludes people who are gender diverse or transgender. It would still be preferable to refer to people or a person who is pregnant throughout the bill, while still noting in the explanatory note that the majority of people who have abortions are women. Hey, family planning, show me one man, just one biological man who has had an abortion. Dumbos. And family planning also opposed any changes to the current law which allows teenage girls to be sneaked off for an abortion without telling their parents. Yeah, shocking. You see, they're obsessed with abortion, aren't they? But the other area that they're anti-family is in what they're indoctrinating your children in. And rather than me explain it all again in detail, let me show you the excerpt from our Family Matters episode. And the episode went viral, which we've also translated into Tongan and Samoan, and which has woken up so many parents to the real agenda and harm being done through the relationships and sexuality education curriculum, which is currently in schools. Have a watch. Firstly, there's family planning's Navigating the Journey. It's probably a journey that you won't be keen on joining them on. It's saturated with gender ideology and also contains material for primary school children that you probably think is up to you as a parent to talk with your children about. Here's a few examples. For new entrants, and learning all the Māori words for these as well. For years 3 to 4, so this is for years 7 to 8-year-olds. But the gender ideology indoctrination begins at 7 years old. Introduce the words sex, gender, stereotypes, and gender roles to the students. Sex refers to how a person's body is classified based on genitals, chromosomes, gonads, etc. Sex and gender are not the same thing, although commonly mistaken to be. Gender, our sense of being a man or a woman or someone else. It may not be the same as the sex we were assigned at birth and is influenced by society and culture. And then they want your 7-year-old to watch this lovely children's book.
Who are you? When babies are born, people ask, is it a boy or a girl? Babies can't talk, so grown-ups make a guess by looking at their bodies. This is the sex assigned to you at birth, male or female. Sometimes people get this confused with gender, but gender is much more than the body you were born with. Some people say there are only 2 genders, but there are really many genders. You are who you say you are because you know you best. For some people, the grown-ups guessed right about their body and their gender. This is called cisgender, when someone's identity matches their sex assigned at birth. And for some people, there are more than just 2 choices. These are just a few words people use. trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, neutros, bigender, third gender, two-spirit, and there are even more words.
Unbelievable. Apparently there's even more words. And there's this one, introducing Teddy.
A gentle story about gender and friendship. I need to be myself, Errol. In my heart, I have always known that I'm a girl, Teddy, not a boy, Teddy. I wish my name was Tilly, not Thomas.
It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's radical indoctrination of 7-year-olds. Now for years 5 and 6, so this is 9 to 10 years old, there's these types of activities. And you'll see at this level a continued and stronger push for gender ideology. Remind the students that gender refers to the gender a person identifies with. For example, girl, boy, both, woman, man, non-binary, transgender, takatapui, or queer, which may or may not match their biological sex. We learn how we act from people in society. Sometimes someone who looks like a boy may actually feel like a girl, and vice versa. Some people don't feel they are either a boy or a girl, and that's okay too. Remember, this is 9-year-olds. Then there's this fun exercise. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your gender has changed. What would that be like? How would your life be the same? How would it be different? Would any of your ambitions change? What could be some negatives about living with this new gender? And what could be some positives? And finally, years 7 to 8. So this is intermediate age, about 11 and 12 years old. And apart from the so-called safe sex method, the teacher guideline says, explain that when we become sexually active, we should get regular tests and checks to monitor our health, just as we go to the dentist to have our teeth checked. Where might someone go to have these checks? Students need to know that doctors can provide contraceptives to young people under the age of 16, and this service is confidential. Yes, we don't want those pesky parents being informed. Highlight the fact that if the students are thinking about having sex, did I mention that this is for 11 to 12-year-olds? It's important to talk to their doctor or nurse about how to keep themselves and their partner safe. It doesn't matter whether they're in a same-sex or an opposite-sex couple. Any couple is at risk of STIs. Identify the services in your area that can provide free support and make them known to your 11 and 12-year-old students. For young teens starting at secondary school, it's these types of activity cards. Still want to go on this journey with family planning? Yeah, well, the good news is that under the coalition agreement with National and New Zealand First, this radical curriculum is about to be dumped. Although we will need to be vigilant, though, and ensure that what replaces it isn't as harmful and flawed. But here's the good news. Because family is such a naughty, conservative, natural, moral, value-based, positive word, family planning want nothing to do with it. And so last week on Valentine's Day, and we loved the date they chose because we love their honesty, they released this press statement. And it says that they're changing their name. One of New Zealand's most iconic organisations is celebrating Valentine's Day with a makeover and a name change. And they say from 14th of February, family planning will become Sexual Wellbeing Aotearoa, better reflecting the work it does and its ambition to see that people are well and informed when it comes to the issues of the heart, the mind, and in fact, all the body. And Jackie Edmonds, the chief executive, says, when we started in 1936, our name was very catchy. It was Sex Hygiene and Birth Regulation Society. Bet you didn't know that one. And in 1939, we changed to Family Planning, and that has been our name ever since. By today's standards, family planning is too euphemistic. It doesn't say plainly, we know sexual and reproductive health, we know sex and gender, we know sexuality, diversity, we understand the impact those have on health and well-being, says Jackie. No, they don't even understand the basic biology of an unborn child, and they can't even define a woman. Sexual well-being, Aotearoa, is clearer and more direct. It says, you're safe here with us. We care that you're well and you're well informed. Yeah, right. People who know family planning love us, love our services and understand what we're about. But when we tested the family planning name and brand, many confused it with a support group for struggling parents and as a government agency like WINS, amongst others. Well, it's definitely not a support group for parents. They're right about that. But it is like a government agency because that's where much of its funding comes from, especially, sadly, for abortion and for indoctrinating our children with extreme sexuality and gender ideology. The idea that family planning was New Zealand's most experienced and capable provider of sexual wellbeing services, education, guidance, clinical services was getting lost. This was especially true for young people. No, we wish they'd get lost. And so it continues. Anyway, one good thing is that they've finally told the truth. They're obsessed about sexuality and gender. They're not about families. Their philosophy is and has always been to encourage young people and culture in general to use sex primarily to feel pleasure and experiment with no consequences or morality. They attempt to divorce sex from gender, from married relationships, from values. Instead, they're encouraging kids to have sex and supporting radical sexuality and gender ideology. It trivializes and cheapens the beautiful gift of sex. The bottom line is keep your kids away from sexual well-being Aotearoa. Check they're not in your school. You see, by changing their name, some parents may only check on, is family planning in my school? But not the new name. Perhaps that's why they've changed it. We've managed to warn parents about their agenda, so they're thinking a name change will help them maybe. Do what you need to do to protect your kids from valueless exposure to sex. Your kids will thank you as they grow into healthy adults.